Good morning, Commissioner Sims.
Good morning. How are you today?
Doing well. How about you?
I'm off to a good start. Thank you. Just figuring out some technology things here.
So I see that Commissioner Walkinshaw and Commissioner Fain are both here present. And so I am going to call this meeting to order. Good morning. I'd like to call this meeting of the Washington State Redistricting Commission to order. I'm Sarah Augustine, the chair of this commission, and I would like to welcome everyone in this public outreach meeting to review congressional district draft maps. To those of you from the public joining us today, welcome. It is my goal as chair to facilitate a process that is as participatory, fair, and equitable as is possible. Throughout our tenure as commissioners, we will hear public comments that are important, and we will listen to you. I will do my best to synthesize the comments, and we'll endeavor to respond as we are able. Still, it is possible that you will bring forward in your public comments ideas, requests, and injustices that we may not be able to address. We will certainly deliberate on the issues where we do have jurisdiction. And where we don't, I will do my best to refer you to those who may be able to respond more effectively. I want to begin by reviewing our purpose and our values. Together as a commission, we have agreed on the following: to provide an open, transparent, credible process that is grounded in statute and where all voices are welcome and there is access for everyone. To conduct ourselves with transparency, respect, and civility, where commissioners will participate and negotiate in good faith. To meet the deadline outlined by law and to produce the best possible maps. You may be aware that because of the pandemic, this redistricting cycle promises to be a challenging one. While we should have received the data from the Census Bureau by April 1st of this year, we did not receive that data until mid-August. Based on the population growth in the state, our job as the Redistricting Commission is to distribute as equally as is practical the population among 10 congressional districts and 49 legislative districts. Based on census data, Washington had a population of 7,705,281 residents as of April 1st, 2020. Therefore, we need to draw 10 new congressional districts that are compact, contiguous, and convenient, and made up of approximately 770,528 residents. Statute instructs us, in as much as it is practical, to minimize drawing district lines that cut through counties, municipalities, or communities of interest. And the Commission is committed to applying these principles while we try to create equally proportioned districts. Each of our voting commissioners has released a draft congressional map and a statement explaining the principles that guided them as each created their map. We are here to listen to your responses to these maps. Since our last meeting, where we listened to the comments about legislative district maps on October 5th, we have received over 300 public comments. More than 100 people testified on October 5th. Since each voting commissioner released draft legislative district and congressional district maps, we have received more comments than during the rest of the entire process combined. As of this morning, we have received more than 2,300 comments since draft legislative maps were released on September 21st. From the My Redistricting tool, where you can comment directly on a commissioner's proposed map, we received 1,575 comments as of this morning. And so far, 1,160 maps are in the process of being created by the public, and the commissioners have received 48 maps from the public. We welcome these comments, and staff is working furiously to catalog them so that they are of the most use to the commissioners as they continue their mapping efforts. We encourage you to continue to comment through whatever form is easiest for you. As I say every meeting, My short summary of the comments received by no means does justice to what the commissioners have read and heard. Due to the influx of comments during the past 2 weeks about nearly every district in every corner of the state, I will make no such attempt to summarize comments at this meeting. Instead, I might offer a couple of thoughts in response to some of the comments we've received. First, we are the Washington State Redistricting Commission. Our principal mandate is to redraw our state's congressional and legislative boundaries to rebalance the population of each district based upon growth over the past 10 years. Thus, while we hear the comments asking us not to redistrict at all, we will be unable to meet these demands as the statute and state constitution have given us the duty to redraw districts to ensure that each of our state and federal elected officials are representing an equal number of people. It should also be noted that our commission does not have the authority to change the number of congressional or legislative districts, nor change the legislative structure of our state government. It is a privilege to serve you as our 4 voting commissioners make decisions that will impact us all. We recognize that the redistricting process allows the public to give voice in the legislative boundaries that we all share, and that our jurisdiction provides a special process where the public has voice. We are committed to developing a final plan to present to the legislature by our statutory deadline to ensure that your voice is reflected in the final plan. Lastly, if you offer a comment about a specific district or an area, please provide some information so we can identify what location and which of the proposed maps you've commented on. Your comment will have the most impact if we know the location associated with your comment, the commissioner or the commissioner's maps you are looking at, and whether you are commenting on legislative or congressional districts. Please tell this commission aspects about your community and how communities relate to one another that we might not be aware of. Your public comment has been an invaluable tool throughout this process, and I look forward to hearing further comment this morning. This morning, we had more than 130 individuals who have signed up to testify. This meeting is set to end at 1 p.m. To ensure that each of you has a chance to speak, be sure to listen carefully for your name to be called and respond promptly when you're called upon. Yesterday, we were informed of your approximate place in the queue of those signed up to testify today. Keep in mind that your placement could change based upon whether those in the queue before you are present. If people in the queue before you are not present, you will be moved up in the queue. Please speak slowly and clearly, and please state your full name for the record. We're going to invite individuals in groups of 4 to testify. Each individual will have 2 minutes to offer their comment. After 4 people have testified, commissioners will have an opportunity to ask questions of the 4 testifiers. Commissioners, please raise your hand in the Zoom if you have comments or questions for the panel. If at the end of the panel I see no hands raised, I will move on to the next panel and we will move to the next group of testifiers. With that summary, Sean, let's begin. Please call the first panel.
Absolutely, Chair. Today we're going to begin with Justin England. If you can please unmute yourself, turn on your video, and begin your testimony.
Hello, Redistricting Commission. My name is Justin England, and I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Kent. I am a voter in the 8th Congressional District, and I'm here today to share my support for the communities of interest in South King County. Throughout the redistricting process, my neighbors have come together to ask for more adequate representation in the U.S. House of Representatives. And I want to share that the Pinheiro-Walkinshaw proposal comes closest to making this vision of a reality. Here's why. It includes South King County communities. It doesn't break county lines, and it returns power to voters of color in our area. There's still more work to be done, however. We need to exchange Newcastle for South Seattle. A consistent theme throughout these hearings has been that we in South King County cannot be represented in the same district as wealthy East Side suburbs. Although their racial demographics may appear similar to ours, their interests are not fundamentally the same. They don't go to our schools, they work in different, higher paying fields, and they enjoy the benefits of more well-funded public services than us. Maintaining the current divisions in South King County, as the Republican maps propose, is dangerous because it will perpetuate the existing underrepresentation of our communities. Despite King County containing roughly 30% of our population, we have no representation in Congress. Our representatives don't live in our communities because the maps are drawn that way. They live in West Seattle, Bellevue, Medina, and Issaquah. We deserve to have a congressional district that represents our communities of interests and contains South Seattle, Skyway, Kent, and all of the communities in between. I want to thank you all for the work that you do. It's incredibly important, and I hope that you will maintain the integrity of South King County in your congressional proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean?
Thank you so much. Jeffrey Robbins, if you can please begin your testimony by turning on your video and unmuting yourself.
I am so sorry. There was a tech glitch there. First of all, I would like to thank the commission for everything they've done, and especially Commissioner Augustine. I think you are a wonderful chair, and it's been a privilege to watch you work. Second of all, I come here today in full-throated and excited support for Brady Walkinshaw's map. I live in Pasco, Washington in the 4th Congressional District. And let me tell you something, if that map were a movie, it's got everything and it's absolutely wonderful. I love the hell out of it. The fact of the matter is that here in the 4th Congressional District, one of the biggest complaints we have is that our district is unwieldy. It makes no sense. It goes from the Oregon border to the Canadian border. I mean, that thing is so massive. I don't know how people campaign in the darn thing. Under Commissioner Walkinshaw's map, you have a much more compact 4th Congressional District and a much more compact 5th Congressional District that's more representative and more respectful towards the cultures, the communities of interest, and the economies of that region. His 5th Congressional District alone is something to marvel at, because if you look at the agricultural economies in that region of Washington state, he put all but 2 of the counties that make up our wine industry in this corner of Washington in one congressional district. I mean, that's pretty darn impressive. The other thing that his map does is put the Colville Nation and the Yakima Nation in a congressional district together, which is historic. It offers an unprecedented opportunity for our Native American partners to express their opinions and to have a say in their congressional districts. So as I leave this wonderful meeting with my time ever so fleeting, once again, I got to tell you, Brady Walkinshaw, you did a hell of a good job. Thank you, sir. I'm done now.
Thank you for choosing to be here this morning. Sean?
Thank you so much. Danielle, I see you as our next testifier. If you can please unmute yourself and begin.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Danielle Garby-Reeser. I'm joining you from Walla Walla, and I'm speaking today in favor of the Walkinshaw maps, and perhaps not as compellingly as my neighbor Jeffrey in Pasco, but appreciative of the spirit of those maps and that they come closest to what many of us asked for before, which was the consideration of horizontal congressional maps in Eastern Washington to more closely map the economic trends in our region and the ways our communities work together. So the way that the 5th Congressional map is drawn in his is most respectful of county boundaries and creates the opportunity for a more compact 5th Congressional District, and one that comes closest to some semblance of more horizontality in Eastern Washington. With my time remaining, I'd also just like to comment on the efforts around the 16th legislative district maps, which is also to appreciate efforts in many of the maps to make Pasco one full community and to include it in the 16th legislative district with all of Walla Walla County. I'd like to make sure that we keep all of Walla Walla County together in whichever legislative district we are, and avoid any maps like those by Commissioner Sims, which unfortunately splits the city of Walla Walla in her map. And I think there's some other strengths to how it is drawn, but want to make sure that the largest city in our area is kept contiguous so that we're able to work most closely with all of our neighbors as we look to Olympia and the needs to advocate for our rural communities. And again, just want to thank all of the commissioners for your incredible time and commitment and the opportunity to involve the public in this effort. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Sean?
Thank you so much. Jeffrey Olson, you will be the final testifier for this panel. If you can please unmute yourself and begin.
My name is Jeffrey David Olson. I live in Medical Lake, 5th Congressional District. And basically, I almost like all of them. The only correction I would make to the Walkinshaw map is put Stevens and Monterey County back into the 5th. Other than that, even the Congressional office here would support that. And they support all the other 3 Congressional maps as drawn. So the panel has done a good job for the 5th, and keep up the good work. And that's it for me.
Thank you. We appreciate your presence. And so I am looking at the commissioners. As I see no hands raised, I'm going to urge you, Sean, let's move on to the next panel. Before we go on to the next panel, I forgot to make an announcement that I'd like to make now. We will take a break at 11:30 for 10 minutes. We will take a 10-minute break at 11:30 so that our interpreters have the opportunity to break. So we'll take that break as close to 11:30 as makes sense. Thank you, Sean.
Of course, Chair, as our next panel begins to get promoted, we will begin with Bunny Hatcher. Bunny, if you're able to turn on your video, unmute yourself, and please begin your testimony. Bunny, it appears that you are unmuted, but your audio is not, your microphone is not hooked up properly. If you can please go to the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, if you're on a computer, next to the microphone. Okay, I can hear you now.
You can hear me now. Okay.
Yes, please begin.
Okay, my name is Bunny Hatcher, and I reside on Vashon Island in the 7th Congressional District. And first of all, let me say that I understand that redistricting in my area, in the Puget Sound area, has to be challenging. We don't have those nice straight lines that you're going to find over in the eastern counties. But nonetheless, I think I want to say that all the commissioners tried hard. And unfortunately, all 4 removed Burien from our 7th legislative district. And I would encourage them to revisit that decision. Burien is seriously connected to the rest of us in the 7th. But there's a difference. 3 of the commissioners placed Burien in the 9th with other communities of interest. That's Commissioner Sims, Walkinshaw, and Fain. However, Commissioner Graves, for some reason, puts it in the 10th Congressional District, along with Lakewood, University Place, Tacoma, and other communities where there is not the real kind of commonality that you would find. This alignment of the 7th, of those from the former 7th district being put in with Pierce County doesn't make sense. With Commissioner Graves' map, I also have another concern, and that's that the other 3 commissioners honor the idea of the natural borders. And in the 7th, for the city of Seattle, it is Puget Sound and Lake Washington. And 3 commissioners keep those boundaries intact. Commissioner Graves, however, just kind of goes right down the middle and places part of Seattle in another district. Now, if we are supposed to, even on a legislative district level, try and keep cities intact as much as possible, certainly when we're dealing with congressional districts with huge geographic areas, we should be able to keep.
I'm sorry that your time has elapsed, but we look forward to seeing your full comment in writing if you would be willing to submit it via email. Sean? For some reason, Sean, your audio is not working.
There we go. Sorry about that, Chair. Our next panelist will be Donna. I see your video is on. If you can please unmute and begin your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners. My name is Donna Branch Gilby. I live in Kitsap County, South Kitsap County in CD6. When I looked at the maps, I find that the Sims map, CD draft map, generally keeps together communities of interest on economic, social, and jurisdictional boundaries rather than splitting them. My comments will focus on CD6. This is the district I've lived in for 7 years, and I appreciate the map because it keeps Mason County whole, which has been for decades at the heart of the 6th Congressional District. I would like to also mention with regard to my friend Jeffrey, that when I looked at the map, Sims map, and I saw that CDs 4 and 5 stretch from border to border, I thought, no, that can be done in a better way. And then to hear that the economic communities of interest really run horizontally, that would be a much more appropriate map orientation for representation. I want to thank the Commission for their hard work and the mind-boggling amount of detail that you and the staff must be dealing with, and wish you the very best for meeting the deadline of for presenting the maps to the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here. Sean?
Up next, Chair Mary, I see that your video is on. If you can please begin your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Mary Peterson. I'm retired and live in Douglas County, just north of East Wenatchee. I volunteer, shop, get all my personal business services within the greater Wenatchee area. Communities of interest should stay together geographically within a single congressional district. This should be true for Native, Latinx, and other ethnic communities, but it also should be true for cities and communities that work together across boundaries to provide services. Wenatchee and East Wenatchee share many resources, programs, and organizations. As such, they should remain together within one congressional district and one legislative district. In Commissioner Sims' alternative, East Wenatchee and Wenatchee remain together in Congressional District 8. I like this alternative for our area. Both Commissioners Sims and Walkinshaw better focused on the direction of the Redistricting Commission. They proposed maps for real people, not for political interest. They listened to community feedback. They drew maps that are contiguous and compact and kept cities and communities of interest together. It's evident that they listened to testimony and wishes of tribal partners and Latinx communities. Their maps will more likely meet legal requirements, including uniting communities of interest. The Commission's job should be to focus on maintaining these communities of interest and keeping cities and counties together. They should not protect incumbents or electoral seats, but should protect diverse populations and their right to representation. The Republican commissioners' maps propose huge and irresponsible gerrymanders focused more on splitting communities. I do not support either of Graves or Fain's alternatives, and I thank you for the work that you are doing.
Thank you. We appreciate you taking the time to be here. Sean?
Thank you so much. Our final panelist will be Andrew Hong. Andrew, I see your video is on. If you can please begin your testimony.
Hello, my name is Andrew Hong. I'm a co-lead with the Redistricting Justice for Washington Coalition, and also I'm a lifelong South Seattle resident, proud graduate of Southern Public Schools in the 9th Congressional District in South Seattle. I'm here to talk about the 9th Congressional District, and first point I want to bring up that all 4 commissioners either totally remove or partially split the Chinatown International District from the 9th Congressional District. It's really important that this Asian American community be in a majority people of color congressional district where they can be of the majority base, not a minority. And then kind of on to, that as a whole, South Seattle is in two of the commissioners' maps totally cut off from a majority POC 9th district. And in one commissioner's map, Commissioner Walkinshaw is partially split off. It's important that South Seattle be in a majority people of color 9th congressional district to be represented as, to be part of the majority base of a majority minority district and not a minority in a majority white district, whether that be North Seattle or the rest of the East Side. And so making sure South Seattle is a part of a district with South King County is super important to make sure that our issues are not overlooked by a majority white congressional district, whether that be the 7th. And additionally, I urge the commission to not prioritize drawing districts for incumbents over drawing districts for communities. And so with all of that in mind, pushing redistricting justice for Washington's 9th Congressional District proposal to put all of South Seattle, which is the most diverse and majority POC part of Seattle, with South King County, and keeping in touch with class lines and considering redrawing the east side out of the 9th and redrawing more of South King into the 9th.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. So I am now looking at the commissioners. This is the end of this panel. Seeing no hands raised, Sean, let's move on to the next panel.
Thank you so much. Our next panel will begin with Nathaniel. I see your video's on. If you can please begin your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you all for being here this morning, continuing to do this hard work, commissioners and chair. Today, I'd like to speak in favor I should say my name is Nathaniel Block, and I am from the Mount Vernon area. Today, I would like to speak in favor of Commissioner Sims and Commissioner Walkinshaw's maps, particularly for the northwest portion of our state. And looking at Commissioner Sims and Walkinshaw's map, I greatly appreciate how they are, it seems to be at least, following some of the principles that Chair Augustine was talking about in her introductory remarks today about keeping the northwest portion compact, continuance, and having that principle of uniting counties and keeping them together, which is very key for me today. When I look at those two maps, I notice that all of Skagit County is together. All of our neighbors to the north in Whatcom County are together, as well as the San Juan and Island County. To me, that's important, as there are many things that unite those four communities in this portion of our state. I also, if I recall correctly, that those portions of the state and those counties are included in certain ways that the legislature, draws and talks about when they want to meet in certain geographical regions, that those four counties are included together. Additionally, when looking at the principles that Chair Augustine laid forth, I'm concerned about how Commissioner Graves' map goes all the way from Port Roberts down through Ellensburg while dividing Whatcom and Skagit counties in half. Additionally, Commissioner Fain's map appears to go all the way from the northern border south towards Mount Rainier and Ellensburg. And that's concerning to me because it's not going to be particularly compact, and it's going to not be particularly convenient for our elected representatives to meet us. So again, I strongly urge you to follow the Sims and Walkinshaw's map for the northwest portion of our state. Thank you.
Thank you. And we appreciate your time. Sean?
Thank you so much, Madeline. I see your video's on, but I'm only seeing a black screen. I'm not sure if there's a malfunction there, but if you can, please begin your testimony if you're able to. There we go, we can see you.
Yeah. Well, I'm Madeline Bishop, and I live in CD10, Thurston County, near Lake St. Clair in unincorporated Olympia. And the cities of Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater flow together and form a strong community. Keeping these communities of interest together is more important than district competitiveness. My Thurston community group includes members from those three cities, and together we lobby our congressional representative. It would be a hardship to split us into 3 CDs. We only have enough volunteers to meet in person with one representative. The Graves map splits Thurston County into 3 districts and separates Lacey into 2 districts. The Fain map splits Thurston into 3 districts and splits Olympia off from Tumwater. I urge you to please keep Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater together in CD10 with South Pierce County as recommended by the League of Women Voters. And thank you for all your work.
Thank you. We appreciate your time this morning. Sean?
Yes, Chair, our next testifier will be Kara. Kara, if you're able to turn on your video and please begin your testimony.
Good morning. I am Kara Briggs. I am a voter in CD2. I recommend Commissioner Walkinshaw's map, and I draw your attention to CD4. Historically, this commission has drawn maps that divide reservations, split cities, and disadvantage poor voters. Walkinshaw's CD4 shows how to do something better for communities of interest. He includes 4 whole reservations, Yakima, Spokane, Colville, and Kalispell, while upholding voters of Hispanic background and rural Washington voters. In so doing, he shows a way to uphold all Washington voters, not just some. I encourage the commission to adopt Walkinshaw's map with some additions from Sims. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning. Sean?
Yes, Chair. We're going to go next to Jim. If you can please unmute yourself and begin your testimony.
Yes, good morning, and thank the commission and the staffers for all their hard work under severe time constraints. My name is Jim Pickering. I'm a resident of Tacoma and a voter in the 6th Congressional District. I'm a retired veteran after nearly 25 years as a U.S. Army Ranger. Of the 4 proposed congressional district maps, Commissioners Sims and Walkinshaw do the best job of satisfying the stated criterion for drawing district boundaries, balancing the many disparate factors of demographics, geography, and civil jurisdictions without regard to political considerations. I urge the commission to adopt a composite map from Commissioner Sims and Walkinshaw's proposals. Under the guise of competitiveness, Commissioners Graves and Fain have drawn maps that attempt to give the Republican Party unwarranted advantages. They all but admit in their statements that they want to increase the number of Republican representatives elected despite their relative low number of votes. Drawing districts to gain partisan advantage is blatantly against the remit of the commission and explicitly against the will of the people of the state of Washington. I urge you to consider Fain, Walkinshaw, and Sims maps as the basis of your choices. Thank you again for your work on this morning.
Thank you for your time this morning. And I believe that ends this panel. And so I'm looking for comments or questions from the commissioners. And seeing no hands raised, Sean, let's call the next panel.
Of course, Chair. Our next panel will begin with Yvette. Yvette, if you can turn on your video, unmute yourself, and please begin your testimony. Yvette, if you are there. Perfect. Thank you so much. Yvette, are you speaking? Because we're not able to hear you. Okay, we were going to move on to our next panelist, Karen Raymond. Karen, if you're able to unmute yourself, turn on your video, and please begin your testimony. Okay, Stephanie, we'll go to you next, as Karen seems to be having issues. Stephanie,
sorry, my computer connection.
Okay, you're good. Please begin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Karen Raymond. I've been a resident of Kittitas County for 37 years. Our county is currently in CD8, and I'd like to keep it that way. I'm supporting the Sims and Walkinshaw maps because they preserve our connections with both the west and the east sides of the state. People often think that the east side of the state is in a whole different universe from the west side, but there are a lot more connections than you might think. For our county, in terms of employment, that's the biggest connection. In 2019, about 18% of the working population in Kittitas County commuted out of the county to work. Primarily, they went to King County. Once a pandemic hit and people started telecommuting, that percentage has increased substantially. You know, people thought, why put up with the traffic and rain on the west side when I could live anywhere? So they moved over here. So we've got a really substantial proportion of the population that actually live here and work on the west side, either through commuting or telecommuting. Other connections in terms of education, CW has 3 branch campuses on the west side. More than half the students at CW Ellensburg come from the west side of the state. And in terms of transportation and commerce, we're connected in a straight line by I-90, which is critical for our export-oriented ag economy as well as tourism. But we also share connections with Chelan County on the north. Chief among them are the impacts of climate change. Wildfires are becoming more frequent and more severe in both counties. Some of them have burned up entire residential areas in Chelan County. We had a fire come within 1.5 miles of our place last summer. And both counties also depend on mountain snowpack for summer irrigation. This year was an exception, but the trend is for more precipitation falling as rain instead of snow. And with irrigation dependent upon snowpack, this is going to have a big impact on our economy as well as that of Chelan. So we need representation that can understand our connections, both on the west and the east side of the mountains, and could deal collectively.
I apologize that your time has elapsed. We look forward to hearing your full comments in writing if you'd be willing to submit it via email. Sean?
Chair, our next testifier will be Stephanie. Stephanie, I saw your video popped on earlier. If you can please turn your video back on, unmute yourself and begin your testimony.
Thank you so much, everybody, for the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Stephanie Gallardo. This is my niece, Elise. I am a high school history teacher in the 9th Congressional District, specifically in Tukwila. I want to thank, first and foremost, each of the commissioners for their hard work and dedication to creating these maps. I'm also here to speak in full support of Brady Piñero-Walkinshaw's map. It comes closest to consolidating power for people of color and immigrant and refugee communities in this process. And frankly, I have to say how disappointed I am that 3 out of the 4 maps chose to take out South Seattle from the 9th Congressional District, disenfranchising one of the most ethnically, racially, and linguistically diverse communities in Washington state. Choosing to keep Newcastle and Bellevue in the 9th while taking out South Seattle is one of the clearest cases of gerrymandering that I've seen as of late. Not only does this protect Democratic incumbents, but it makes clear that the majority of the commissioners considered first what was best for their parties, and second, what was best for the people of the 9th Congressional District. If this redistricting process is to remain credible, democratic, and fair, South Seattle must remain in the 9th Congressional District, and it shouldn't even be a question. Lastly, I want to thank Brady Piñero-Walkinshaw for clearly taking into account the maps, suggestions, and feedback put forth by the Redistricting Justice Commission. I also urge you, sir, to consider putting the international district as a whole back into the map. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. We appreciate your time this morning. Sean?
Yes, Chair, our next testifier will be Terry. Terry, if you're able to turn on your video, unmute yourself and please begin your testimony.
Hi, I find all these maps very interesting. And as previously mentioned here, the handling of Burien is detrimental. We are firmly South King County, and the 33rd district currently is 53% people of color. Some of these changes seem to dilute that, which is unacceptable. We want to remain in a people of color minority, either in the 7th or the 9th district. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your time this morning. Sean?
Yes, Chair, we're going to try to go back to Yvette if you're able to unmute yourself and begin your testimony. I'm going to prompt the, oh, there you go. Yvette, we're still not able to hear you, unfortunately. I'm being informed that you were trying to use call-in, using your phone to call in for audio. The instructions are on your Zoom invitation email to sync your audio from your phone to your video. If you would like to go try and do that, and I'll be able to call on you soon. So that will be the end of this panel, Chair.
Thank you. With that, I'm looking at the commissioners for questions or comments, and seeing none. Sean, let's call the next panel.
Of course, Chair. Our next panel, as they start to get moved over, will be Bennett. If you can please unmute and begin your testimony.
Okay. Hi, my name is Tim, and I'm currently a resident of Factoria in Southern Bellevue, and I want to speak in support. My favorite map so far is, of course, Walkinshaw's map. However, I'm still disappointed in that a lot of South Seattle is still cut off from the rest of the 9th district, and I believe all of South Seattle from Chinatown all the way down to Rainier Beach should belong in the 9th district with other people of color, with other working class voters. And also, as a Bellevue resident, I would prefer if my part of Bellevue, in South Bellevue, stays with the rest of Bellevue as one congressional district, as our kids go to the same schools, our socioeconomic and our demographics are very similar with the rest of the city. And also, I would ask too that my part of Bellevue be be totally cut off from the 9th district, as I can very much tell that it very much protects Adam Smith's incumbency, and his kids go to school in the 8th district and Kim Schreier's district, and he lives like right near the border of it. And I would ask that Bellevue and Newcastle be completely cut off from the 9th district and into the 8th with Issaquah and Sammamish. Those would be my preferences too. And yeah, that's all I have to offer here today. Thank you so much for your time and effort. I really appreciate that you're so open to us. So thank you.
Thank you for your time. Sean?
Thank you, Chair. Our next testifier will be Glenn. I see your video's on. If you can please unmute and begin your testimony.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. April Sims map is the best for Kittitas County. I live in Roslyn. My name is Glenn Rudolph. We want to remain in the 8th. There's a lot of commuters going between here and the west side now. One small change in her map, though, I think that the city of East Wenatchee should be added to the 8th CD because of the keeping the Latino population contiguous. And, you know, to make up for adding more people there, you could shave off down around Yelm and Roy in that area. So anyway, that's all I got to say today. Thanks for everything and good luck.
Thank you very much for your time this morning. We appreciate it. Sean?
Yes, Chair. Our next testifier will be Stephen. If you can, please unmute and begin your testimony.
Morning. I urge the commissioners to adopt the Washington League of Women Voters proposed congressional districts map. My name is Stephen Wilhelm. I live in Redmond, Snohomish County, near the border with King County in the current 7th congressional district. The League of Women Voters map has several advantages over any of the commissioners' maps, including connecting downtown Seattle with parts of Snohomish County. I agree with the League's assessment that Redmond and Shoreline should be tied to Seattle's urban center for federal representation. Please consider the League of Women Voters' insightful analysis of their and the commissioners' proposed maps and incorporate their comments in your final map. If you're unable to adopt that excellent proposal, Commissioner Sims' map is the best of the 4, as it includes only a very small portion of King County in the new 1st congressional district where I would be located. Even Commissioner Walkinshaw's proposal includes too much of Northeast King County in the new 1st CD. As a frequent recreation visitor to that area, I can assure you the residents of that area have quite different community interests from those of us in Southwest Snohomish County. I strongly urge the commission to reject Commissioner Graves and Fain's maps. Their proposals seem drawn to enhance the partisan advantage of the Republican political party. These maps may create more competitive districts, but at the expense of unacceptably awkwardly shaped districts that divide recognized communities of interest. I concur with Commissioner Walkinshaw's recent comment that competitiveness is code language for Republicans, both here and nationally, for gerrymandering. Their maps combine unrelated communities within their districts in order to allow representatives to choose voters instead of allowing voters to choose their representatives. A strong democracy should not permit that. Please adopt the Washington League of Women Voters congressional district maps that keeps Redmond and Shoreline in the same CD and tied to Seattle's urban center. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. We appreciate your time this morning. If you had more that you were cut off and you wanted to share, please submit it in writing via email. Thank you. Sean?
Yes, Chair. Our final testifier will be Bennett. Sorry, you got cut off at the very beginning. If you can please unmute and begin your testimony.
And good morning, Chair Augustine and members of the commission, and thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Bennett Massey-Helber. I'm a union representative living in La Conner in the 2nd Congressional District, and I'm testifying as an individual. I'm joining you today to in support of Commissioner Sims and Commissioner Walkinshaw's proposed 1st and 2nd Congressional District maps. For the past 10 years, Northwest Washington has been divided by a vertical line running north to south, largely along I-5. While many argue that this split created a rural district to the east and a more urban coastal district to the west, in reality, the current map needlessly separates communities. It takes Whatcom County and divides Bellingham from towns like Blaine, Ferndale, and Linden, and it takes Skagit County and arbitrarily splits Anacortes and La Conner from Mount Vernon, Burlington, and Cedar Woolley. Furthermore, the 1st Congressional District has taken these rural areas and small towns and lumped them in with Bellevue and Redmond, drowning out the voices of Northwest Washingtonians in favor of those living in large cities in King County. That's why I was so happy to see that Commissioner Sims and Commissioner Walkinshaw's proposal does away with the current 1st and congressional districts in favor of a map that keeps Northwest Washington together. Their proposed 2nd district keeps Whatcom County and Skagit County in the same district rather than splitting them down the middle. And their proposed 1st district keeps rural and suburban Snohomish County together. I hope that the commission will choose to adopt a map that creates an improved Northwest Washington like what was proposed by Commissioner Sims and Commissioner Walkinshaw. Thank you for your time. I look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you. We appreciate your time this morning. And I believe that concludes this panel. And so I'm looking to the commissioners for comments and questions for these testifiers, and seeing none. Sean, let's move on to the next panel.
Of course, Chair. Our next panel will begin with Janet. Janet, if you're able to unmute, turn on your video, and please begin your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Janet St. Clair, and I'm the Island County Commissioner for District 3. I live on Camino Island in the 10th LD and the 2nd CD. As a commissioner, I am active on federal policy issues and currently serve on the Federal Relations Committee for Washington State Association of Counties and on the Health Policy Committee for the National Association of Counties. I've also been active board Swiss collaboration of Skagit, Whatcom Island, Snohomish, and San Juan County. I appreciate the efforts and hard work of this committee and the recognition of our shared natural community boundaries by 3 of the commissioners. As I reflect on the maps presented, I want to begin by expressing my strong opposition to the map presented by Commissioner Joe Fain. His map divides the county I represent for no logical reason. It also divides a commissioner district into 2 separate congressional districts. This map divides off Central and South Whidbey. It is not contiguous and does not represent our shared priorities for broadband planning, transportation, infrastructure, agriculture, forest practices, salmon recovery, and shoreline protections. Of the remaining maps, I feel Commissioner Walkinshaw's map best represents the priorities, shared interests, and communities I serve as a commissioner and in my regional planning and advocacy. Thank you for your time and your commitment to this important effort.
Thank you. We sure appreciate your time this morning. And Ms. St. Clair, you cut out in the middle of your testimony in the first minute or so. So I want to suggest that you submit your full testimony in writing via email to make sure that we got it all. Thank you. Sean?
Yes, Chair. Our next testifier will be Joe. I see your video is on, and you're unmuted. You can please begin your testimony.
Hi, my name is Joe Kier. I'm a resident of Skamania County and the current 3rd CD. Traditionally, the 3rd CD is in Southwest Washington, and it's around the largest metro area being Vancouver. Skamania County is in Southwest Washington. It's not in Central Washington or Eastern Washington. Actually, King County extends farther to the east than Skamania County. I prefer the Sims and Walkinshaw maps. Let me explain why. Skamania County is part of the Portland-Vancouver metropolitan area. Clark County and Skamania County are the 2 Washington counties that comprise the Portland-Vancouver metropolitan statistical area. We have a large number of residents in Skamania County who commute to work in Clark County or Oregon, and our economy is intertwined with Clark County. In that regard, our services, shopping, transportation are tied to Clark County. It matters to us who represents Clark County as well as who represents Skamania County. We have a community of interest. Skamania County belongs in the Southwest Washington CD, and that CD is the 3rd CD. That's why I support the Walkinshaw or Sims proposals that place Skamania County in the 3rd Congressional District. Thank you.
Thank you. We sure appreciate your time this morning. Sean?
Yes, Chair. Our next testifier will be Cindy. I see your video is on. If you can please begin your testimony.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. My name is Cindy Black. I'm the Executive Director of Fixed Democracy First. We are a statewide, nonpartisan, pro-democracy organization with members and supporters in all congressional districts across the state. I personally live in the 7th CD. We are also a member of the Redistricting Justice for Washington Coalition and support the recommended maps submitted by our coalition. I wish to address a few points about the Commissioner's proposed congressional district maps. First, in South King and North Pierce counties, the 9th CD is currently Washington's only CD that is majority minority by population. we recommend some changes to the commissioner's proposed maps. Commissioner Walkinshaw's map is the best, but we would like to see South Bellevue and Newcastle removed from the 9th and instead include Chinatown International District and the rest of South Seattle in the Central District to support these low-income communities of color. Commissioner Graves' map splits voters of color across the 9th and 10th CDs. This proposal establishes 2 majority-minority population districts, but it ultimately reduces the proportion of citizen-age voters of color in both districts, thus weakening the voting powers of communities of color. Commissioner Sims and Fain's maps both split South Seattle and Chinatown International District from the 9th CD, the most diverse communities in King County. We would ask instead to unite South Seattle in the 9th over East Side suburbs. Lastly, we ask you to please do not divide the Latinx communities in Mount Vernon and the surrounding areas in Skagit County between the 1st and 2nd congressional districts. Please support these recommendations to ensure communities of color are properly represented. Thank you all for this important work.
Thank you. We appreciate your time this morning. Sean?
Yes, Chair, our final testifier will be Harold. Harold, if you're able to unmute yourself and please begin your testimony.
You hear me?
Yes.
All right. I'm real pleased with the Walkinshaw map for congressional, 3rd congressional district. I think that's the best one of the bunch. Sims is okay, but he's got it down. I would just encourage the committee to listen to the residents of each congressional district. They know their towns and communities the best. My only other thing is with in the future, if you could please address the each congressional district individually in regards to the legislative districting. I know that's not the subject here, but there's so much work that needs to be done there. These Walkinshaw's map, great for Clark County and Southwest Washington, so I'm all in on that. The legislative districts are horrible. The maps that have been drawn, I'd really like to see that addressed on an individual basis, because otherwise everybody's information is all diluted. You got too many people contributing. Each individual that comments here knows their neighborhood, their congressional district, and their LD the best. So I would really encourage you guys to make 10 individual meetings for the LD for the congressional districts to comment on their LDs. All right, thank you so much for what you're doing, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, sir. I wonder if you could state your full name for the record.
Oh, Harold Hansen, 3rd Congressional District, LD 17, PCO 622.
Thank you. Sure appreciate that. All right, and so that concludes this panel. And I am looking at the commissioners for questions and comments and seeing no hands raised. Sean, let's move on to the next panel.
Yes, Chair. Before we move on, Zoom is experiencing a little bit of a problem today. So Brian Dorr, Catherine Schultz, and Chuck Cawson, if you are able to exit the meeting and please rejoin. We have had to pass you by because we're unable to move you to let you testify. This should be sorted if you're able to leave the meeting and just simply rejoin, and we'll make sure that we get back to you. With that being said, we're going to move on to our next panel, and we're going to begin with Gretchen Chambers. Gretchen, when you are able, if you can turn on your video, unmute yourself, and please begin your testimony. Gretchen, are you there?
Hi, sorry about that. Let's see, can you see me?
We can hear you, Gretchen. Please begin.
Okay, here I am. Thanks. My name is Gretchen Chambers, and hold on, sorry. Thanks. I have owned timberland near Cle Elum for 32 years and have observed great change throughout the 8th CD. Fire season now spans 4 months, with fires far more common and severe. Growth is stressing the transportation network of I-90, its west side tributaries, and highways 2 and 97. Many constituents can no longer live near their work. These changes define a community of interest that needs unified federal representation. That would be best achieved by Commissioner Sims' 8th CD map for 5 primary reasons. One, it's spanning the Cascades. Its area is similarly impacted by climate change. Rising temperatures are melting the snowpack faster, reducing our river flows and watersheds, and augmenting wildfires. We need unified representation to support sustainable forestry and riparian management and green energy and infrastructure throughout the 8th. 2, it keeps Kittitas in the 8th, maintaining our ties with King, Pierce, and Chelan, which have been built only since 2011 when Kittitas was moved there from the 4th. 3, over half of the students at Central Washington U hail from the west side. Many Kittitas residents commute and telecommute over the pass. Retirees are moving east. The 8th's reach to the west represents these connections. 4, land values have skyrocketed in the 8th, reducing affordable housing near employment centers. This widespread problem also needs unified representation. 5, it reduces the fracturing of King County by including King's northeast corner. Sims' map needs one modification. The Latinx communities of both Wenatchee and East Wenatchee are 33%. They should be combined in the 8th. This addition could be offset by subtracting from the southwestern edge of Pierce. With the addition of East Wenatchee, Sims' map represents a compact and competitive 8th CD, unifying communities and environments of important common concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We sure appreciate your time this morning. Sean?
Yes, Chair Kathleen, if you can please unmute and begin your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Kathleen Hyman. I live in CD8. I'm a 23-year resident of suburban King County, living in unincorporated King County, just east of Issaquah. My comments will focus on the eastern end of current CD8. In 2012, CD8 was changed. As Paul Graves states, CD8 is a swing district. We are competitive, known as a shorta seat. That makes the overhauls proposed by Mr. Graves and Mr. Fain quite concerning. There's no need to make these kinds of changes to balance population. I support the Walkinshaw and League of Women Voters approach to our CD borders. Commissioner Sims seems to do a good job with Wenatchee and East Wenatchee perhaps being brought together, but I do support our continued CD8 boundaries going to Kittitas and into Chelan County. The Sims, Walkinshaw, and League maps honor and maintain the community of interest we have in, personally speaking, in suburban East King County. We share numerous issues here: transportation infrastructure and responsible development in the greater Seattle area, and workforce development and 21st century jobs. The Republican maps artificially split my own suburban East King County neighborhood in two. Fain would put homes just less than a mile east of or west of me into suburban King County, whereas my neighborhood and homes in my immediate area are in the North Cascades district, going all the way to the Canadian border. Mr. Graves moves my community deeply into South King County. I see no community of interest or coherence to the lines he has drawn around East King County, Tacoma, JBLM, and South King County in general. He even includes Anderson Island in the new CD, but excludes the ferry that is in Silicon. The commission risks losing credibility if Fain's or Graves' dramatic shifts are adopted. They're not consistent with the actual text of the Constitution or the
I'm sorry, Ms. Hyman, that your time has elapsed. Please do submit your full testimony to us in writing via email. Appreciate your time this morning. Thank you. Sean?
Yes, Chair, our final testifier will be Mary. If you can please unmute and begin your testimony.
Good morning, Chair Augustine and Commissioners. My name is Mary Holland, and I live on Whidbey Island in Congressional District Number 2. As I testified to you on July 24th, my community of interest is the shoreline peoples of the Salish Sea. That is Island County, all of Whidbey and Camino Islands, and the nearby western-facing mainland that borders the adjacent waters. We focus on the marine environment and the crucial links provided by the ferry system. The system is critical to the commerce, jobs, tourism, healthcare, and even government services that we need. Surprisingly, Commissioner Fain's proposal for Congressional District 2 disregards my earlier testimony and splits Whidbey Island, relegating the southern 40 miles over to Congressional District 6, and the forestry dependent Olympic Peninsula. He leaves Mukilteo in his new Congressional District 2. This makes no sense. It separates us from the ferry link between South Whidbey Island and Mukilteo that's critical to my community's economy, jobs, and healthcare. Clearly, my community of interest would be broken by this division. The 6th Congressional District, contrastingly, covers a vast Olympic Peninsula where ferry, marine environment, and tourism concerns aren't as important. Those of us split out by Commissioner Fain's gerrymander would need the reservations only and often canceled Port Townsend Ferry in order for us to meet with our congressperson. Fain's map breaks law in my community and should not be used. Commissioner Graves's proposed map for Congressional District 2 takes a puzzling jog up into the South Fork Nooksack Valley of Eastern Skagit and Whatcom counties, where focus concerns are far different from those of my waterside community. They haven't the interest in them.
I apologize, Ms. Helene, that your time has elapsed, and we look forward to seeing your full comment in writing if you'd be willing to submit it via email. And so, Sean, I believe we have one final panelist. Is that right?
Yes, I misspoke earlier, Chair. Liz Knox will be our final panelist. Liz, if you can please unmute and begin your testimony.
Hi, my name is Liz Knox and I live in Puyallup. I'm testifying in favor of keeping the city of Puyallup in Congressional District 10 as in Commissioner Sims and Walkinshaw's maps. I think that we have a lot more in common here in Puyallup with Lakewood, Fife, and Tacoma, rather than with Buckley, Electron, and Wilkeson, because we are more connected to the Port of Tacoma, and we will have an even closer connection once Highway 167 is completed. We have many warehouses, and the connection to the port will be even stronger at that time. We need a federal representative who is familiar with and involved in legislation governing ports. The proposed map to place Puyallup in the 8th district would also break up traditional Puyallup Valley lands from the mouth of the Puyallup River. Puyallup residents need to have a say at the federal level in what happens with the tide flats, because that sensitive area has a direct relationship to the health of the river throughout the Puyallup Valley area. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. We sure appreciate your time this morning. And that concludes this panel. And so I'm looking at the commissioners for comments and questions, seeing no hands raised. Let's move on, Sean, to the next panel.
Of course, Chair, we're going to go back to those 3 individuals that I asked about earlier, Chuck, Kathleen, and Brian. We're going to see if they're able to testify before we move on, as they were had signed up early in this process. I see Chuck. If you're able to turn on your video and begin your testimony, please.
Thank you and good morning, and thank you, commissioners. My name is Chuck Cawson. I'm a resident of the 8th District in Issaquah. I wanted to first acknowledge Commissioner Graves for pointing out the value of competitive districts. There is value in competitive districts. The statute, of course, asks the commission to draw districts that are convenient, compact, and contiguous. But the Washington Constitution also asks that we have equal and fair voting, and equal votes are votes that count. And districts that compress, one political agenda into one place, such that votes for the opposite party don't really count, don't do things effectively. Unfortunately, Commissioner Graves' map does not meet this criteria. It excludes areas east of High Point of exit 20. It compresses certain communities in together and excludes other communities to the east that have made the 8th district more competitive and more interesting. Moreover, it fails the other tests of the statutes, and as does Commissioner Fain's map, in that they are not convenient, compact, and contiguous. I'll leave the example that they split the schools that children attend with the soccer fields and the parks in Grand Ridge and Preston, where they go after school, into separate districts. I think that's illustrative enough of how, unfortunately, they don't meet that criteria, and that'll conclude my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. We sure appreciate your time this morning, Sean.
John, I see your video is on. If you can please begin your testimony.
Thank you. And thank you all for taking on this important work. My name is John Amell. I live on Camano Island in the 10th LD and the 2nd CD. In reviewing the maps, I generally find that Commissioner Sims and Walkinshaw seem to be following the law and the directives given to the commission. They drew maps that were contiguous and compact and kept cities and communities of interest together. Our 2nd CD community is based around shoreline, stretching from Everett to Bellingham. Our issues include climate change, salmon, orca preservation, reliable ferries, sustainable forest practices, broadband, and agriculture. Generally, it's all about our marine environment and the critical links provided by our ferry system. Graves and Fain's maps break up cities and counties, ignoring the Voting Rights Act and how it requires the representation of ethnic groups. Fain's map even splits Whidbey Island and has it moving into CD6. When you look at their maps, it's obvious that they have made every effort to draw districts to their political advantage. I support the map drawn by Brady Walkinshaw with April Sims as a close second. But I also encourage you to look at the League of Women Voters map. In my remaining time, I'd like to modify my previous LD map testimony. After listening to the people from the San Juan Islands, I get their point. If the 10th LD expands northward and incorporates their islands with our Whidbey and Camano Islands, our representation in Olympia will be reduced from 6 to 3. While I didn't directly advocate for this, I did support Commissioners Sims and Walkinshaw's LD maps, which included the San Juan Islands in the 10th. I did encourage them to grow the 10th LD to include more shoreline areas, maybe by adding more of Fidalgo Island and Mount Vernon, or parts of Mukilteo would work. Thanks again for all your work.
Thank you. We really appreciate your time this morning. Sean?
Yes, Chair. Aram, if you're able to unmute and please begin your testimony.
Hi, thank you. Sorry, I don't have a camera on this. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. My name is Aram Falsafi. I've been living in South Seattle for 17 years. I want to speak regarding the 9th CD, the only majority minority district in the state. So many of us tried to lobby for strengthening the majority minority status of the 9th. Unfortunately, 3 of the 4 proposed maps don't even make an attempt at this. To be honest, I'm not surprised at the maps proposed by Commissioners Graves and Fain. I didn't think they had a commitment to this, and their maps bear it out. Though the Graves map is particularly odd and a blatant attempt to split the people of color in the district into 2. And I don't buy the whole, oh, we got 2 majority minority districts, because if others have pointed out, this is not true if you look at the citizen voting age population. But I'm truly disappointed in the map from Commissioner Sims. It actually takes several neighborhoods with large African American, Asian American, and Latin American populations that are part of the 9th and puts them in the 7th. For example, Rainier Beach, International District, South Park, Beacon Hill, New Holly. And somehow it finds a way to keep Mercer Island in the district. This is gerrymandering and incumbent protection, pure and simple. Sad and ironic that this is coming from the only non-white commissioner. I find that truly baffling. And of all the maps, Commissioner Walkinshaw's is the closest to protecting the majority minority status of the 9th. But even this map of the 9th still meanders up the east side to include the incumbent's home, Adam Smith's home in Bellevue. Though I have to say it's not as nearly as gerrymandered as the Sims map to protect Adam Smith. And then I want to urge the commissioners to really take another look at the League of Women Voters and Redistricting Justice for Washington maps. They're based on principle and not partisanship, something that I can't say about 3 of these 4 maps. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your time this morning, Sean.
Yes, Chair. Our next testifier will be Nire. If you can please begin by unmuting.
Sure. Hi. Good morning. My name is Nire Petty. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a voter in the 9th Congressional District. I'm commenting today as a born and raised Seattleite and as an advocacy organizer for the Urban League, an organization part of the Redistricting Justice for Washington Coalition, otherwise known as RJW. So over the past decade, many BIPOC residents, including my family and friends, and BIPOC businesses have been displaced from our hometowns due to gentrification and redlining. So I, along with many others, believe that the lack of equitable representation at the Capitol to voice the concerns of our community, along with gerrymandering, played a huge part in this matter. So at RJW, we fight against gerrymandering, the manipulation of districts for partisan interests, which has simultaneously divided BIPOC communities into separate districts. And when BIPOC communities are divided, their voting power is suppressed. Therefore, we believe the commission should prioritize drawing majority-minority districts to increase the opportunity for BIPOC representation and help fulfill our state's pride of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I believe Commissioner Walkinshaw's map was best at representing these values. And I'm pleased that all the commissioners' maps maintain the 9th status as a majority-minority district. However, I strongly believe that they should remove the east side suburbs such as Bellevue and Newcastle from the 9th district. These areas should be replaced with the International District and Chinatown, all of South Seattle and the Central District, which are all historical BIPOC communities in the King County. Including these areas will ensure that we have better representation and support for low-income communities of color, rather than dividing them and reducing their voting power even more. With that being said, I urge the commissioners to re-examine the proposed maps to exclude the east side suburbs from the 9th and prioritize districts that are drawn to keep communities of color and interest together. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate your time this morning. And I also want to just make a special thanks to this panel for being patient with the technical difficulties that you experienced. Thank you for being patient and sticking with us. So that concludes this panel. And I'm looking at the commissioners for comments or questions. And seeing none, Sean, let's move on to the next panel.
Yes, Chair. Our next panel will begin with Lisa. I see your video is on. If you can please unmute and begin your testimony.
Okay, good morning. My name is Lisa Evans. I live in Klickitat County, Congressional District 3. I'd like to thank all the commissioners for your time. It's been fascinating to listen to all the diverse opinions from across the state this morning. I am the Klickitat County Republican chairwoman. But I am speaking to you as an individual this morning. However, I have heard from many voters from across our county. None of the maps keep us in Congressional District 3. All the maps have moved us into more of a north-south orientation, so stretching from the Columbia River all the way up to the Canadian border. This creates an absolutely massive district that logistically doesn't really allow for one person to be able to travel, talk to the people, really hear what all the voters want. So all the voters in both Congressional District 4, where you want to move us, and Congressional District 3, we would be greatly underserved. And then something that I've not heard anyone refer to is the National Scenic Area. So we are currently in Congressional District 3. We have the National Scenic Area, which ties us in with the Clark County and Skamania County, plus 3 other counties in Oregon. And it's very important that we have our voice in order to help protect the scenic, cultural, natural, and recreation resources of the gorge economy. So just in short, Klickitat County borders the Columbia River Gorge. We're part of the National Scenic Area. Our community centers on that work and lifestyle. And we would prefer to remain with Clark and Skamania counties, populations that share our interests and are best served by one federal representative that understands those needs. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your time this morning. Sean?
Yes, Chair. Our next testifier will be John. I see your video is on and you're unmuted, so please begin your testimony.
Hi, my name is John Thompson. I live in the 3rd Congressional District in a town called Toutle. There are 3 points that I want to make. One, that the congressional districts are compact as possible. 2, the community of interest, where people feel part of the congressional districts and travel is limited as much as possible with connecting roads within the congressional districts. And please do not split cities and counties. Limit the number of congressional districts that cross the mountains. 3, that the districts that are drawn follow the county lines, the city lines, and rivers and roads, not imaginary lines that no one can find. I used to live in a legislative district that followed the tribal boundary, but I could not find it as it was not marked and no one could tell me or show me where the boundary lines are. In the 3rd Congressional District, where I live, I like both the Sims and Walkinshaw maps because only one congressional district crosses a cascade, whereas the Graves and Fane maps have 2 congressional districts crossing the Cascade Range. I find that crossing the mountains is not a community of interest. I do not like the 4th and the 5th congressional maps that Sims and Graves and Fane because they force candidates to travel from the Canadian border to the Oregon border, whereas Walkinshaw's map has only one congressional district that has a candidate to make the Canadian to Oregon commute. I want to thank all of the commissioners for their hard work. I hope they can meet my criteria as they come together and create a new congressional maps for our state. Thank you.
Thanks. We sure appreciate your time this morning. Sean?
Yes, Chair. Our next testifier will be Susan. I see that your video is on. If you can please unmute and begin your testimony.
Thank you to the commissioners for having the Saturday morning opportunity to testify. My name is Susan Baird Joshi. I live in the city of Kirkland in the 45th Legislative District, and I'm in the 1st Congressional District. I appreciate the efforts that the commissioners have gone to keep the cities of Yakima, Moses Lake, and the Yakima Nation together. I remember the testimony from the legislative district, and I think it's important to recognize territorial boundaries and national boundaries for the Yakima Nation. So I appreciate your efforts in that area. I would like to say that I prefer districts that are more diverse and include urban and rural components. And I believe that the Sims and Walkinshaw maps do a better job of keeping urban and rural flavor of the current congressional 1st district. The Graves and Fane dramatically changed the nature of representation of Kirkland, North King, and Snohomish counties. And so I urge you to not choose those maps. Finally, one of the maps actually puts me not in the 1st Congressional District, but in the 7th Congressional District. Whatever the number of the district that I live in, I will continue to work with other members of our congressional district residents to address climate change, public education, special education, and funding. And I hope all the testifiers on this call will reach across congressional districts to find common cause to work to address climate change and education. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We sure appreciate your time this morning joining us. Sean?
Yes, Chair. The final testifier for this panel will be Sasha.
Thank you. My name is Sasha Slayton. I live in the 9th Congressional District, and I want to reflect the first speaker, whom I very much would like to meet. He lives in my town, as well as Cindy Black, that racial diversity does not reflect socioeconomic diversity. So including South Seattle gives the diversity to the 9th Legislative District that it needs. I'm really sad about the surgical precision with which Fane and Graves were able to blatantly squash our voices by dividing communities of interest, I think. South Seattle belongs in the 9th Congressional District. I really appreciate the opportunity for all of us to participate in this process. It feels very American to me. And I appreciate the work, the hard work that the committee have done. I want to recommend that the League of Women Voters work also be addressed. They too held hearings and listened in every voice. Thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate your time this morning. Sean, I believe that concludes this panel.
Yes, it does, Chair.
Okay, and so I'm looking at the commissioners for comments and questions. Seeing no hands raised, let's move on to the next panel. And I want to remind you that we are going to take a mandatory break at 11:30. So let's move quickly through this next panel.
Yes, Chair. Our next panel will begin with Adrian. If you can please turn on your video and unmute and begin your testimony. Okay, Casa, I see your video's on, so it will begin with you if you can simply unmute and begin.
Thank you, Sean. My name is Casa Hannon. I live in Renton and vote in CD9. I work in technology and volunteer my time with the WSU Foundation, Seattle Arcs Foundation, Team Gleason, and the League of Women Voters. I have 2 requests today. CD8 should go over the mountains and include Kittitas and Chelan County and East King County residents with the strongest ties to Eastern Washington. CD9 should include my home in Renton and should be a majority BIPOC district that includes South King County areas like Auburn, East Kent, and the Muckleshoot Reservation, and should not include Newcastle, Factoria, and Bellevue. Second, I ask the commissioners to consult the maps submitted by the League of Women Voters Washington as you are deliberating. I commend the commission, Sarah Augustine, Lisa McLean, and the entire staff for conducting a process that welcomed public input. The League has been doing the same. We have hosted nonpartisan, regional, and statewide listening sessions to gain an understanding of communities of interest, areas of shared economic, environmental, and transportation needs, and opportunities for majority BIPOC districts. The League also collaborated with Redistricting Justice Washington and More Equitable Democracy. In accommodating the input, we've done the hard work of balancing districts to submit statewide maps. We hope these can serve to inform the commission of other alternatives when you reach an impasse. I recognize that you're balancing many interests. Thank you for considering my input today.
Thank you. We really appreciate your time this morning. Sean?
Yes, Chair. Sharon Holt, I see your video's on. If you can simply unmute and begin your testimony.
Hi there. Good morning, Saturday morning. Here we are again. I want to start by thanking the commission and also specifically Sarah. You've been wonderful at guiding us through this. And Sean, I'm a technical background person. Hats off to you. So this is going to be brief because I checked through my plan testimony and almost everything that I wanted to say was covered. So I will echo the comments of Bennett, Massey, Helby in regards to some of the pros and cons of the different maps that are proposed. I do want to say the Brady map is the most compact and appears to be managing most of keeping the cities together, the counties together, and that is what is most important to me. I am a Linwood resident, again, Sharon Holt, 30 years now, but I grew up in Washington and have lived in Shoreline the other half of my life. So I kind of have this Seattle version of the world and the North Seattle version here up in Linwood. And I've also recently retired and bought property in Chelan. So I now have interest across the state and I spend a lot of time in Eastern Washington. There's a lot of good reasons to take the Brady and Sims maps over Graves, which breaks Issaquah, for example. I have friends living in Issaquah and I'm there a lot. It is absolutely impossible to imagine why there is a carve out that looks like a cookie cutter. And that is also true in some of the other cities and counties, as Bennett pointed out in the Walkinshaw map, are kept together in a great way. So I thank you for listening. I will send in my comments and give my time back to the rest of the folks waiting.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And we appreciate you joining us this morning. Sean?
Yes, Chair. We're going to go to Alma. I see your video is on. If you can simply unmute and please begin your testimony. Okay, we had Alma for a second and she turned her video off. So it looks like she's now disconnected. So Adrian, I see that you're ready with video on. If you can simply unmute, please begin your testimony.
I'm unmuted?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. I'm Adrian and a resident of Adrian Bradford, resident of Klickitat County. Our current Congressional District 3 has a critical, I emphasize critical connector between our county Klickitat to Skamania and Clark. That connection is the National Scenic Area, a federally created area. Everything we need to do with our private property require review and approval by the Columbia River Gorge Commission, which is okay, but very, 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 very complicated, which therefore includes our federal U.S. congressperson. So the Graves proposal, well, let me back up. One of the District 3 proposals, I guess, would work if you added back Klickitat and Skamania counties into it, but I imagine that would make a big difference in your deviation numbers. So I think better of the Graves proposal map, which looks reasonable except for one tiny but very, very important issue. It does not include the western end of the National Scenic Area within the proposed District 4. That if formalized, that would require all residents of these 3 counties to deal with 2 separate U.S. congresspersons, not just one. A tiny adjustment of that proposal, the District 4 map, to include a very small portion of Clark County that contains the end of the scenic area would permit all of us to work with just one common congressperson, simplifying not only their responsibilities, but ours as well. And I don't believe that would affect the deviation numbers at all. In fact, I think it would slightly improve them. And so my written comment further explains the many, many daily connections between we 3 counties, and I therefore propose the District 4 proposal of Congressman Graves. Thank you.
Thank you. We sure appreciate your time and comment this morning. Sean?
Yes, Chair, we're going to go back to Alma. It seems like you were able to connect your audio and get everything set up. So if you can please begin.
Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank you, commissioners, for your work, and Chair for doing such a fantastic job of keeping this meeting rolling. I do appreciate all the work that everyone has put into it. My name is Alma Chacon. I live in Wenatchee, right in the middle of Washington State. I'm a Latina that has lived in Washington State for over 50 years. I've lived both on the east side, over in the Yakima-Grandview area, and the west side in the middle of Seattle and West Seattle. And now I live in central Washington. So I have a perspective as to how the impact that boundaries have on all people, especially in the areas where I have lived. So right now I currently work with diverse communities across the state in different capacities. And right here, I'm here to speak in favor of the Waukesha map, which takes into consideration both city and county lines, as well as follows the guidelines of the commission. I am right now in CD8. So the map as proposed by Commissioner Waukesha takes into consideration the needs of the people, the representation and acknowledgement in the geographical and economic connections already made by those of us in CD8. I believe that his map will mostly represent the needs of the communities in these areas and will keep the people moving forward in the right direction. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We sure appreciate your comment this morning and for taking the time to join us. And so this concludes this panel, I believe.
Yes, it does, Chair.
Okay, and so I'm looking to commissioners for comments and questions. Seeing no hands, I am now going to move that we take our break. We have a mandatory break, and we have a couple of minutes extra. So why don't we reconvene at 11:40? Thanks, everyone. See you in a few minutes. Welcome back. Thanks again for joining us for this public meeting of the Washington State Redistricting Commission. We are beginning now with our 11th panel. Sean, if you're ready, let's call the next panel.
Yes, Chair. Give me 1 second. We're going to go back to Yvette Joseph, who tried to call in earlier, and then we're going to go through the rest of the call-ins. So first, we're going to go to Yvette. As Yvette gets moved up from the attendees, we're going to go to the first phone number ending in 678. So phone number ending in 678. If you can hit *6, you will be allowed to speak. And please.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Please state your full name for the record.
Yes, my name is Linda Seltzer, spelled like the soda, and I live in Redmond, and I'm currently retired from engineering. CD1 is a contiguous region, including urban, suburban, and rural areas. Technology professionals, small business owners, farmers, and healthcare workers can learn from each other, and we communicate about concerns and points of view. I personally find it valuable for people from technology to learn about agriculture, land, fishing, and the food supply chain. For this reason, I prefer the maps by April Sims. The maps combine technology and farming and diverse populations into districts and do not create silos dominated by particular interests. Two of the other maps from Paul Grace and Joe Fain would decimate the contiguous longitudinal structure of CD1 and separate the technology industry from agriculture, and would create silos and reduce communication. Thank you for hearing our testimonies.
Thank you. We appreciate your time here this morning. Sean?
Yes, Chair. Our next testifier now should be Yvette. Yvette, if you are able to hit *6 on your telephone, it will allow you to unmute.
Good afternoon. My name is Yvette Joseph. I'm enrolled in the Colville Tribe, and I'm living in Spokane, Washington in the 6th Legislative District. When the state was established, the Moses Columbia tribal people occupied the vast territory of the 5th and 6th Congressional Districts. In 1872, my great-great-grandfather, Chief Moses, negotiated the executive order establishing the Colville Indian Reservation. During the reservation era, full brothers and sisters were split between the Colville and Yakima reservations. 20 years ago, our reservation underwent gerrymandering and was split down the middle by redistricting. That's in the Colville community. Today, I support the restoration of the Colville Indian Reservation's voting power and gladly embrace Brady Walkinshaw's plan to rejoin our Colville Confederated Tribes with the Yakima Nation in the 4th Congressional District. With the Spokane and Kalispell tribes, we choose to remain sovereign and indivisible. Our vote is sacred, and we too seek to elect Indigenous people to represent our communities. Thank you for your consideration, and know that I appreciate each of you for your tireless work. It's an important job, and I think it's very valuable. I do hope that you can help us to rejoin our brothers and sisters from ages ago, our cousins these days, into one voting district. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time and your testimony this morning. Sean?
Yes, Chair. And so we're going to go into our first full panel outside the call-ins, and we're going to begin with Angela. I see your video's on. If you're able to unmute, and please begin your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners and staff. My name is Angela Burney, and I'm the mayor of the city of Redmond, which is the 15th largest city in the state and the 8th largest in King County, currently represented by the 1st Congressional District. I would like to offer my brief feedback for your consideration. Redmond is incredibly grateful for its current representation, Congresswoman Gail Benny, who has served our community well. Redmond has also appreciated being represented in the same congressional district as like cities, such as Kirkland and Bothell, and only the Walkinshaw map keeps these cities together. Others split Redmond into 2 districts. I know this district has experienced significant population growth, so it is inevitable that boundaries will change, particularly in the north. However, I hope that as you work toward a final map, you can keep these like cities together, providing the same consideration of keeping similar communities together as you did in Seattle. In closing, I'm thankful to live in a state that values an open and transparent redistricting process and appreciate your work and public service. Thank you for your time and consideration of my testimony.
Thank you. We appreciate your time this morning. Sean?
Yes, Chair. Our next panelist will be John. I see your video is on. You're unmuted. If you can please begin your testimony.
Yes, good morning, Washington. My name is John Peoples, a content resident of Kenmore, up top Lake Washington in King County, currently in the 1st Congressional District. I'd like to thank all of the commissioners for doing the hard civic work of drawing our congressional districts so that the state of Washington has a great representation in our federal House of Representatives in our great American Republic. Well done and keep up the good work. I'd like to strongly urge the commission to favor the maps drawn by Commissioner Fain and Commissioner Graves. Both of these maps give the people of Washington the best chance of a competitive districts and a currently lacking more balanced representation. As a member of the urban suburban community, I certainly don't mind at all the prospect of sharing a more balanced congressional representation with my more rural Washington neighbors. And I'm quite certain that the Fain and Graves maps would do that. I would prefer the Fain map because it would keep me in the 1st and not throw me back into the 7th Congressional District. And with that, I'd like to wish everyone an upcoming very happy Columbus Day. Thank you.
Thank you. And we very much appreciate your testimony this morning. Sean, is your intention that this panel is now ended or?
No, my intention is the call-ins were on separate panel.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So I missed the opportunity to ask the commissioners to respond to the panel of call-ins. Are those people still present in the room?
I can get them permission to speak if you would like that, Chair.
Well, let me first see if the commissioners have comments or questions for the call-in folks. Seeing none, then let's proceed with this panel. I apologize to the people who called in that I missed the opportunity to ask that earlier. Okay, moving on.
My apologies, Chair. We're going to continue with Pamela. I see your video is on. If you can simply unmute and begin your testimony.
Yes, hello. I'm Pamela Gaudette, resident of and small business owner in Pasco. I'm in the 4th CD and the 9th LD. The Commission's redistricting directives were to keep communities of interest together, including Native nations, BIPOC people, Latinx people, while creating contiguous, compact districts and respecting natural boundaries. I am disappointed that the maps by Commissioner Graves and Commissioner Fain do not adhere to these directives. The Graves map, for instance, stretches the 10th CD into Kings County, ignoring natural boundaries and unduly favoring Republicans. The Fain map splits shoreline between 1st and 7th CD, dividing communities. There are other flaws that point to these maps from these 2 commissioners favoring Republicans over the redistricting directives stated before. I favor Commissioner Walkinshaw's map as it unites Walla Walla, Franklin, and Whitman County, except that I would suggest that the 4th CD become more horizontal and comprise Franklin as well as Yakima and Benton County with Whitman and Walla Walla. These will join agricultural communities that have like interests with their nearby constituent and supportive urban communities. Commissioner Sims' map is well done, but would benefit from not splitting Adams County and in making the 4th and 5th CD horizontal and more compact. Thank you very much, Commission, and for this opportunity to give a public comment.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time this morning. Sean?
Yes, Chair, and our final panelist will be Rosie Lopez. If you can please turn on your video, unmute, and begin your testimony.
Hi, thank you, commissioners, for all your work on the maps. I just would like to give my support to April Sims' map for the CD drawing of CD number 1. I think it's very fair. I think it's it keeps the Latino community together in CD1. I wish that you would consider April Sims' map for how to draw the LD 40 and go back to that, because to take all of our representation on the LD map is very worrisome to me, and I don't know how serious the commissioners are taking that, but I do think that April Sims' map does a good representation of CD1. And like I said, I hope that you guys do go back and consider her map for the LD maps, because this is a very serious drawing, and you know, I think you guys have done, for the most part, a very good job, very hard job. It's one of those things where, you know, you can't satisfy everybody, but you know, if you're going to do this like interest, that is where you have failed when it comes to the Pacific Northwest and keeping our communities together. But like I said, the CD maps between Walkinshaw and April Sims, those are the best that help support and represent the Pacific Northwest area. Thank you.
Ms. Lopez, I wonder if you will please say your full name for the record.
My name is Rocio Lopez, and I live in CD1 in the Mount Vernon area.
Thank you. Sean, I believe this concludes this panel. Is that right?
That is correct, Chair.
Okay, great. So I'm looking to the commissioners to see if there are comments or questions, and seeing no hands raised, let's move on to the next panel.
Our next panel will begin with Edward Martinez.
Yes, hello. My name is Edward Martinez, and I am in CD8. I am also a displaced immigrant from Honduras due to war. A retired principal development manager from Microsoft, where I worked for 20 years, and a Chelan County resident. I am here today because I am grateful for all this country has done for me and my family. A strong community of interest could be defined as our small business owners, all of those involved in the industry, in the tourist industry here in Leavenworth. The reliance and ties to the west side are obvious and strong for Chelan County. Commissioner Fain's map draws CD8 north all the way to Canada and ignores this tie. Commissioner Graves' map labels us as CD1 and draws the map north and snakes all the way to Point Roberts, which we have very little in common with. Both Commissioner Sims and Commissioner Walkinshaw maps get it. Chelan County needs to be tied to the west of the mountains for commercial and tourist-oriented business. Our area is reliant on the west side connection for its commercial livelihood and future existence. Now, I want to go against my better instincts and bring in a secondary point. What a wonderful and democratic process Washington State has created for redistricting. You allowed opinions from both extremes and made this process to be the people's choice instead of the two dominant parties. Additionally, I'm a natural Greek and relished and basked on your mapping tools and web interfaces. Thanks for that. Lastly, I invite you to consider the two maps I submitted that tweak and rebalance CD8 and CD4 to include East Wenatchee to Pangbourne Airport in CD8 using my two preferred maps, Commissioner Walkinshaw and Sims. Muchas gracias, and thank you for your efforts and service.
Thank you. We really appreciate your time and your presence this morning. Sean?
Yes, Chair. Our next testifier will be Bill Sheets. I see your video is on. If you could please unmute and begin your testimony.
Hello, I'm Bill Sheets. I live in Congressional District 2 in the city of Everett. First of all, I'd like to commend Commissioner Walkinshaw for making the adjustments to District 4 to bring those tribal communities together. That aside, I would like to see the current congressional districts left intact as much as possible. I think they're very fair. I think they've resulted in pretty proportional representation throughout the state from a statewide perspective. 6 of the 10 districts were Democratic for of the past 10 years. That's pretty close to the accurate representation of the state, I think. The 8th could swing back at any time. I think the League of Women Voters map does the best of keeping the current districts intact. Obviously, with except for just the tweaks for population. In the 2nd district, most of the maps, well, at least a couple of the maps extend the 2nd district way out. The proposed commissioners maps extend the district way out into the mountains, and I oppose that. I think the 2nd district should be left intact as much as possible. It's we're all coastal communities here. We have that in common, and League of Women Voters map does that pretty well. So thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. We appreciate you joining us this morning. Sean?
Yes, our next testifier will be William. If you can please begin.
Thank you. I am Bill Hochberg, and thank you, commission members and staff. I have lived most of my 63 years on Mercer Island, meaning I've been a voter both in the 7th, 8th, and now 9th congressional districts. My belief is that Mercer Island should not be part of a Seattle district, and it would be not meeting the goal of community of interest. And to meet that goal, Mercer Island should be part of an East Side suburban district. I agree that with many of the other speakers who have spoken in favor of keeping South Seattle and South King County together, that means and mandates that Mercer Island should be part of an East Side suburban district, as these communities have things in common that are not the same as certainly a Seattle district. So to that extent, I ask the commission to make sure that Mercer Island is appropriately placed with an East Side suburban district. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your comment this morning. Thank you for joining us. Sean?
Yes, Chair. Our final testifier for this panel will be Karen. I see your video is on. If you can please unmute and begin your testimony.
Good morning. Thank you to the Washington State Redistricting Commission, its chair, and 4 commissioners. My name is Karen Kellerman. I live in East Wenatchee and vote in CD 8 and have deep roots in North Central Washington. In general, I find the congressional district alternatives of Commissioners Walkinshaw and Sims to best follow the overall redistricting goals established by the Commission and Legislature. With respect to my comments today, I'd like to focus on the goal that districts reflect communities of interest on the ground. I will submit detailed explanations and a map adjustment proposal for your consideration. The communities that comprise the greater Wenatchee area are intimately linked, as was recognized in the 2011 maps. People and businesses in our region share municipal services, healthcare systems, a 2-county port administration, 1 chamber of commerce, 1 visitor and tourism organization, a regional airport, and so much more. Another extremely important consideration is that of representation for the growing and vibrant Latinx communities, populations of Wenatchee and East Wenatchee, members of whom now comprise nearly 50% of our community. They deserve an opportunity to build a stronger, more representative voice, one made more possible if placed in 1 congressional district rather than being split apart. These are 2 of the important reasons I ask that you consider maintaining the communities of Wenatchee and the greater East Wenatchee area wholly together in 1 congressional district. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on this very important process.
Thank you for choosing to be here with us this morning. We appreciate your comment. And that concludes this panel. And so I'm looking to the commissioners for comments and questions, and seeing no hands raised. Sean, let's move on to the next panel.
Yes, Chair. Our next panel will begin with Michelle. Michelle, if you can please turn on your video, unmute yourself, and begin your testimony.
Hi, good morning. My name is Michelle Lee. I'm from the 5th Congressional District and 5th Legislative District and the 8th Congressional District. I'm one of the founders, Washingtonian for Change group. We are a grassroots group. We started this group to promote civic engagement in the Asian American community. We now have over 1,600 members. Thank you, the Commissioner and the Chair, for your important work. I applaud the Commissioner on your recognition of adding majority-minority districts in the legislative district map. Adding majority-minority district on the congressional map is something that the Commission should strive to do. Commissioner Graves was the only commissioner's map that does this. The only majority-minority district leaves out a large pockets of historic unrepresented communities in South Tacoma and South King County. Washington State is over a third minority, and one majority-minority district isn't enough. This is something the Commission can do and should do. And thank you for your time. I appreciate an opportunity to testify today.
Thank you. We really appreciate you joining us this afternoon. Sean?
Yes, Chair, our next testifier is going to be Emily. I see your video is on. If you can please unmute and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Commissioner, and for this opportunity. My name is Emily Freet. I live in the 8th Congressional District in Issaquah. I actually live in downtown Issaquah. I support the League of Women Voters map and Waukesha's map. What my biggest concern with the other maps is that they break up communities of interest, and specifically with Issaquah, they actually break up the school district that serves the education for the neighboring. They break up the educational school district for Issaquah proper, in addition to the communities in Bellevue, Newcastle, Renton, and Sammamish that are all served by the same school district. The maps provided by Fain and Grains also, excuse me, don't honor the communities of interest that we have that prioritize transportation, infrastructure, and responsible development, and it really treat Issaquah as a rural and a community that doesn't have the needs of an urban district, which it does. And so I thank you for this opportunity and support the League of Women Voters map and districting. Thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate your time this afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Sean?
Yes, Chair, we're going to go next to Bill. If you're able to turn on your video and unmute yourself to begin your testimony. Bill, you're still muted, but I can see you.
Okay. Hi there. I'm Bill Miller, and both Nancy and I have lived in Chelan County since 2006. And we live 45 miles from Wenatchee, 25 miles from Stevens Pass, and we consider the Metro Wenatchee, East Wenatchee area part of our community of interest, particularly Pangbourne Regional Airport, Costco, and the shopping mall. And without those, they would not be part of our community. That is why I support the Walkinshaw plan along with the Sims map. And if they can include the Metro Wenatchee area, and if you don't include them, you're cutting off the Latinx voters that exist on the other side of the river. Currently, the 8th Congressional District includes the parts of the city of East Wenatchee, but not enough of it in the new map. Examples of interest that share on both sides of the community, $92 million was recently provided by the Department of Transportation to help the transportation needs of East Wenatchee and Wenatchee. Those were supported by both counties. Those were supported by both cities. And the Latinx community on both sides of the river need to be in the same congressional district. And I might point out that the League of Women's Voters map does not. It cuts them off and marginalizes them. So as I recognize that if you tweak the map to help us, you're going to have to tweak somebody else. And I guess it suggests you do the least amount of harm, but we are a community of interest in the greater Wenatchee area. And so I appreciate the time. I appreciate that you are working with a 1,000-piece puzzle and that it's not easy. And soon as you push one way, you have to push another way. And it's a heck of a job. And I appreciate your fortitude and concern to do this. So thank you.
Thanks very much for joining us. We appreciate your time this afternoon. Sean?
I even got in mind.
Yes, Chair. Our final testifier is going to be Brian. If you can please unmute and begin your testimony.
Good afternoon, and I want to thank you for this opportunity to testify. I want to thank the Commission for its work. I think the Washington State redistricting process is a model for the nation, and the country would do better if it was replicated elsewhere. I also want to thank the commissioners for their hard work. I know it must be difficult doing this work, knowing that no matter where you draw the lines, someone will be unhappy. Specifically, I live in Kent in the 9th Congressional District, and I want to support April Sims' map. I think as the very first testifier said this morning, we in South King County have very different concerns than Seattle, and breaking the line at the Seattle city limits seems to me to be a good idea. So I would support the April Sims map, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kesterson. I wonder if you would state your full name for the record.
I'm sorry, my name is Brian Kesterson.
Thank you. All right, I believe this concludes this panel.
It does, Chair.
Okay, so I am now turning to the commissioners for comments and questions, and seeing none. Sean, let's call the next panel.
Our next panel is going to begin with David Polland. David, if you're able to turn on your video, and I will set the ASL interpreter for Spotlight for you. Also going forward, I want to let you know that you will still be able to remain here, that we're able to see the ASL interpreter the entire time. Just make sure that you go to the top right-hand corner of the screen and hit gallery. You'll be able to see them the entire time.
I see the interpreter right now.
Perfect.
Ready?
Yes, whenever you're ready.
Okay. My name is David Polland. I live in the 49th District, the 3rd Congressional District, and I would recommend Sims. It's not a partisan reason. I analyze what I see there. I like it because my family originally was from Ellensburg. I know what the cultures are like in different places. She covers my area, I think, good. I think she has a Puget Sound good. I also think she has Eastern Washington good. I think that who will represent us matches her map the best. I don't like really the other three that good. The border lines don't really match up to the cultures. I would say the next best one I would say is probably by Paul Graves. And again, that's because of the shape of where my district is on the southwest and also the far east. I want people to have representation that matches their culture, their needs, like rural farmers, like people that fish on the coast, that people are near the waterfront and developing it, that are near Oregon, and the Puget Sound is near Canada. They need to have a person that represents them that knows their issues. So I really appreciate all four of you for your hard work. I respect you for that. And keep in contact with Southwest Washington. Thank you for your time and the accessibility.
Thank you. We really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us this morning. And I want to thank you, or this afternoon, thank you for your patience as we've worked to make sure that you had the opportunity to be heard. Sean?
Absolutely, Chair. Our next testifier is going to be Catherine Stoltz as a call-in. If you're able to press *6 to please begin your testimony. Again, that's *6 to unmute yourself.
Hi, Commission. Can you all hear me correctly?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you. So my name is Katie Stoltz, and I am calling in today as a concerned advocate with the Redistricting Justice for Washington Coalition. Great to see you all again. And I'm also calling as a lifelong resident of the 9th and 7th Congressional Districts in Washington. I have two main points to bring to the Commission today. First, I urge the Commission to preserve the majority minority status of the 9th Congressional District, but to reevaluate the lines proposed by all commissioners. As someone who was born and raised in the 9th Congressional District in Federal Way, I know firsthand that the interests of Eastside suburbs in Bellevue and Mercer Island are not the same as those in South King County communities. This commission has an opportunity to draw a majority minority district in South King County that truly represents the diversity of South King County region. This is why I'd like to lift up support for Commissioner Walkinshaw's map, which is the closest to fully maximizing the potential for a strong majority minority congressional district. The only change is that I would call on all commissioners to keep the Seattle, Chinatown, and National District and South Seattle in the 9th Congressional District, to keep the historical communities of color of the Seattle region together in the only majority minority congressional district in the state. My second point is regarding the Congressional Districts 1 and 2. I want to echo the points listed up by my fellow panelist, Rocio Lopez, in support of Commissioner Sims' map for CD1 to consider the growing Latino communities in Mount Vernon and surrounding areas in the Skagit area, and to not divide the Latino community between the 1st and 2nd Congressional Districts. And my last point is I just wanted to lift up my hope that all written comments and written testimony be taken into consideration as highly as public testimony. I know there were a number of people in our coalition that were unable to testify on Tuesday evening because of the inaccessibility of the meeting running until midnight. Thank you all for holding through till the end, but I just want to lift up that the only way to have a fair process is to have an accessible process. Thank you for this second opportunity to testify. And again, just lifting up, please consider the concerns lifted up today and prioritize keeping communities of interest together over protecting incumbents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We appreciate your time here this afternoon. Sean?
Yes, Chair. Our next testifier will be Mary. If you can please begin.
Unfortunately, Mary, we can't hear you.
Mary, it does look like you are using a cell phone to call in. If you can make sure you hit the *6 to ensure that you are unmuted. Try that one more time and it says that you're still muted.
Okay, there we go. Hear me all right?
Yes, now we hear you.
Perfect, thank you so much. I really wanted to echo what Edward Martinez said. I think as a citizen of this country, we have a right to representation, and his story was very moving to me, and I really appreciate what immigrants bring to this country. I'm so happy that he testified today. As a member of this Congressional District 2, and I'm sorry, my name is Mary Rollins. I forgot that at the beginning. I just wanted to say that, the Graves redrawing of CD1 displaces 3 sitting members of Congress, all Democrats. I don't think this is a mistake. Our folks, Delbene, Schreier, and Smith, this is gerrymandering, which is illegal. And so I just recommend that we throw this map out, at least in regards to CD1. I urge the Commission to review the unfair displacement of Democratic legislators and Congresspeople, as it is a mass removal of sitting representatives, and not just mine here in the 2nd District. I really appreciate what the state of Washington is doing. So many states are not getting this opportunity to go through this process. So I appreciate your time today, and thank you for listening to my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us this afternoon. Sean?
Yes, Chair. The final testifier for this panel will be Charlotte. I see that your video is on, you're unmuted, so you can begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Charlotte Persons. I live in the 10th Congressional District in Olympia. And I want to beg you, please, to respect the principle of keeping communities of interest together. I think in regards to the published maps, Walkinshaw's and Sims come the closest, but we've certainly heard a lot of testimony about where their maps have split these communities of interest. I wish you to revisit those. As a resident of Thurston County, I am really thrilled that Walkinshaw's map respects my county boundaries. And I would like to say that I was very disappointed when I saw that Graves would split my county in two, Thurston County, and Fane would split it into 3 pieces. We deserve to have a congressional representation that looks at our complete county. We get a lot of federal funding for different programs, health, transportation, and so on, from the federal government, and we need to speak as a single voice. Thank you for your work on all of this, putting all these pieces together, and that's all I have today.
Thank you. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us this afternoon. And that concludes this panel. So I'm looking at the commissioners for comments and questions. Seeing no hands raised, Sean, let's move on to the next panel.
Yes, and before we begin, Chair, Zoom is having some issues today with our ability to move individuals so they're able to testify. So Joseph Lockman, Claire Rooney, Joanne Cully, and Alrin Mallory, if you're able to leave the meeting and re-enter, we should be able to get you moved over so you're able to testify. With that being said, if we can begin with Douglas Ramirez for this next panel.
Hello, my name is Douglas Ramirez Ortiz. I want to first thank the commissioners for this opportunity to speak up and give my and other people's opinion on the redistricting proposals. I want to applaud them for the recognition of adding new minority majority districts to their legislative district proposals. However, I was greatly disheartened to see that this same love and care wasn't given to congressional district proposals. And to that end, I want to really echo Commissioner Graves' proposal for doing that and going out of his way to ensure that historically underprivileged and underrepresented communities do have a voice in our federal government. I want to once again thank all of you for this opportunity to speak up, and I hope that you give more consideration to the congressional district map in your proposals. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate you taking the time to join us this afternoon. Sean?
Yes, Chair, our next testifier is going to be Alexa Brenner. Alexa, if you're able to turn on your video, unmute yourself and please begin your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Alexa Brenner. I am a resident of the 10th Congressional District. When looking at all 4 of the proposed maps, there are some glaring errors and differences between the maps that should be addressed. Demographically, the 9th Congressional District will be a majority people of color district with the drawing of all 4 maps. However, it is absurd to ignore the fact that there is not a majority voting citizen age population of color and does not do anything to address the systemic oppression of people of color in our state. Allowing maps that split up voters of color hurts 40% of the population of our state and hurts us all in turn. Commissioner Walkinshaw, your map is the closest to the ideal and closest to what we should be seeing for the 9th. However, just keeping the entire international district in the 9th is super important, and we would love to see that. Commissioner Sims, your map also could be really awesome for the 9th, but does miss a lot of the Black and Asian populations in South Seattle, and don't split up Asian Americans as a historic community of interest in the 9th Congressional District. Commissioner Fain's map puts South Seattle in the 7th, which dilutes the voices of people of color in both the 7th and the 9th. Cutting South King County up in that way also quiets the voices of residents in what is the most racially and economically diverse part of our state. And my opinion on Commissioner Graves' map, which I could probably write a dissertation on, just distilling it down, is that, Commissioner Graves, you've created a map that has 2 majority people of color districts, giving yourself that praise, but not noticing, or maybe not hoping that people are going to be looking critically at these numbers. Both districts do not have a majority people of color citizen voting age population. The people of color in those districts are not old enough to vote. Therefore, communities of color are not able to have adequate representation at our federal government. The way that the 9th and 10th are drawn is weakening the power of voters of color, while simultaneously saying that there are more people of color in each district. It's incompetent at best and dishonest at worst. Bottom line, taking into account the data.
I'm sorry, Ms. Brenner, your time has elapsed, but we look forward to seeing your full comment if you're willing to submit it in writing via email. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time this afternoon. Sean?
Yes, Chair. Our next testifier will be Calvin. Oh, I'm sorry, Pastor. I saw your video was on for a second. If you can turn your video back on, unmute yourself and please begin your testimony.
Thank you. I'm not sure. This is Pastor Gregory Christopher, and I am the president of the Tacoma Ministry Alliance, which is a makeup of about 25 churches. And so I'm really here to represent a very wide range of constituents, asking that we, the commissioners, and thank you all for your hard work, that that you not change any of the districts in the Pierce County area, more specifically District 6 and District 10. There's an old saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And so we pray that you guys would heed to some of that advice, and also heed to some of the comments that was made, or the majority of the comments that was made today. So thank you so much, and I really appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We're glad to hear your comments. Sean?
Yes, Chair. Our final testifier will be Calvin. I see your video is on. If you're able to unmute and please begin.
Hi, good morning. My name is Calvin. I live in the 9th District. First off, I just want to thank the Commission for taking the time to listen to all our comments. I wanted to join and say that I don't think that it makes a lot of sense to integrate Seattle into the same congressional district as South King County and the East Side. There's a large difference in politics and identity, and I think needs to be taken into account. And the interests of Seattle are, I don't think, the same as South King County cities. Seattle tends to overshadow those cities in South King County, and I think keeping the cities whole should be the priority. So it makes sense that Seattle be its own district. And I was happy to see that Commissioner Sims Maps did that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We sure appreciate you taking the time to be with us here today. And so I believe this concludes this panel.
Yes, it does, Chair.
Okay, so I'm looking to the commissioners for comments and questions, and seeing no hands raised. Sean, let's move on to the next panel.
Of course, Chair. Our next panelist will be Joseph. If you can unmute and begin your testimony, please.
Thank you so much. Again, my name is Joseph Shoji Lockman. I am a longtime resident of Seattle Chinatown International District, as well as the 9th Congressional District. I also work as policy analyst at Asian Counseling Referral Service, which is proudly a part of the Redistricting Justice for Washington Coalition. I'd like to speak specifically to the proposals that have concerned me regarding the 9th Congressional District, and I strongly urge the Commission to consider keeping this Chinatown International District and much of South Seattle in the 9th Congressional District. I do not believe that the area that I live in particular, which is heavily minority, Asian American, working class folks, belongs with the downtown and North Seattle area, and has much more in common with areas farther south as it stands right now. I have particular concerns about Commissioner Graves' map as well, because of the way that it inappropriately splits. So the Chinatown International District along the freeway line, again, a very historic injustice to this community in itself, and not a reasonable boundary for splitting off the Little Saigon area from the rest of the Chinatown International District area. So again, I urge that the citizen voting age population also be looked at, as much stronger of a factor in terms of looking at protecting communities of interest, and not fall for a guise of just creating, in theory, minority majority districts, when they in fact actually reduce the power of political power of historic communities of color. So again, I urge you to please consider this, because it was lacking in all of the map proposals, and in favor of this over Bellevue, Newcastle, and Mercer Island in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you taking the time to join us this afternoon. Sean?
Yes, Chair, our next testifier will be Claire. I see that your video is on. If you can unmute and begin.
Hello, and thank you very much for the opportunity to testify. Hello, I'm Claire Roney. I'm a voter in the 6th Congressional District and a resident of Jefferson County since 1995. I'm also a small business owner, a psychologist serving elderly in long-term care facilities in Jefferson and Clallam County. I understand that to meet its target population goal, the 6th Congressional District needs to add on an additional 34,000 in population. I ask you to support the proposed redistricting maps of Commissioner Sims and Walkinshaw that would add the rest of Tacoma or close to the 6th CD. Most of Tacoma is currently in the 6th CD. The Sims and Walkinshaw maps unite Tacoma and retain communities of interest as the RCW directs. It would also unite the 28th and 29th legislative districts of Tacoma. And Tacoma has historically been a part of the 6th Congressional District since its creation. The proposed maps of Sims and Walkinshaw would also unite Mason County, that is now split between the 6th and 10th Congressional Districts. I urge you to preserve most of the district's existing boundaries and add the needed population by uniting and joining the rest of Tacoma and Mason County to the 6th. This is the least expansive approach as proposed by Commissioner Sims and Walkinshaw. And frankly, when residents of the 24th want to gather, we do not want to have to take a ferry, costing us money and time to get to Whidbey Island, as Commissioner Fain has proposed. So thank you for your consideration of this request. And I want to also thank Sarah Augustin. I really appreciate your graciousness. I was part of the 5-hour meeting the other night, and I was absolutely amazed at how wonderful you were and respectful and gracious to all of us, even to midnight. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us this afternoon. And thanks for being here. Sean?
Yes, Chair, our next testifier will be Marlene. Marlene, if you're able to unmute yourself, turn on your video and begin your testimony. Okay, we will go down to Linda instead. Linda Carter, if you're able to turn on your video, unmute yourself and please begin.
Can you see me?
Yes, please begin.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Linda Carter, and I live in the 10th Congressional District. I am an educator in Puyallup. I have lived in Enumclaw, Linwood, Tacoma, and Puyallup. Puyallup needs diversity. Puyallup needs the diversity of Tacoma. We need to attract educators and families that reflect the children we serve now more than ever. Our town and district can still share and collaborate with towns to the west and other districts to the east. We need to bring people together. Redrawing the line seems to be an isolating tactic where we, Puyallup, would lose that connection to Tacoma. In the past, we have partnered with Tacoma on issues such as homelessness. I don't know if towns to the east are equipped to effectively collaborate on the issues of drug abuse, homelessness, and homeless encampments. If it's a struggle to manage these things in Tacoma, will towns to the east be able to do better? Our connection to the Puyallup River estuary and the Port of Tacoma are a vital connection, to the Puyallup area. Also, our connection to our indigenous population continues to grow. We need to remain to be a part of the 10th district. I support the maps of Sims because she keeps Puyallup intact. And I also support the League of Women Voters map. Thank you.
Thank you. We sure appreciate your time and testimony this afternoon. Sean?
I'm sorry, Melanie, earlier I misread your name. You're going to be the last person on this panel. If you can unmute and begin.
Hi, my name is Melanie Davis, and I am with CD3, LD17. So I'm down here in Clark County. and Southwest Washington currently. I have been a voting resident for Clark County in Clark County, registered for 7 years. I've lived all over Washington since the 1980s to present, to present. Also having lived in Oregon and Idaho and lived in the Northwest states my entire life. I am 46, 46, I don't know, who knows. When comparing these maps with the League of Women Voters, it looks like Walkinshaw and Sims could definitely help Graves and Fain understand that collaboration without partisan bias and agenda is important. This is about people, our services, representation, and partisanship is not appreciated. Seeing gerrymandering in Washington state is disappointing to me. It is a serious problem nationwide and has a long history of creating problems for democracy. This isn't about East versus West, North versus South. We are a state with diverse communities that make this state work. I am keenly far more interested in the voices of our sovereign nations in Washington, as well as minority voices in this process. This is far more important to me because of the level of services and infrastructure that they build and that they are a bigger voice of than I think people want to admit. CD3 and Southwest Washington can't be, I really like the League of Women Voters map, as well as Sims and Walkinshaw for CD3. I also want to say that I really, really appreciated, his name was Harold Hansen, his testimony, Joe Keir, who also testified about CD3. And there were several people who said that they still want to be part of this.
I'm so sorry, Ms. Davis, that your time has elapsed. We would certainly love to see your full written comment if you're willing to submit it via email. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. And that concludes this panel. Is that right, Sean?
That is correct, Chair.
Okay, so I'm looking to the commissioners for comments and questions, and seeing no hands raised. Let's move on to the next panel.
Our next panel will begin with LaShund. If you can turn your video on, unmute yourself, and please begin your testimony.
Hello, I'm Pastor LaShund Lambert. I live in Auburn, Washington. I believe that's district number 8. I don't identify with either political party, but I pastor a very diverse church where we have those that consider themselves Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, and liberals, and also do quite a bit of work with my brothers and sisters with the Muckleshoot tribe. And as far as a leaning, because of issues associated with our police advisory committee, where we're told our solution will come through legislation, I'm leaning toward the map presented by Commissioner Graves, and I appreciate all of the hard work that everyone has put forth to give everyone access. After spending several years in a state whose political leanings are way different than Washington, I thank you for allowing the people to have input. But I believe if we can allow people's votes to be empowered, we would have a greater chance at seeing less violence and less frustration in the streets, because the voting is the way that America should be run, not by things being burned down or there being fear in the streets. Seeing that I have my Black brothers and sisters, white, Native, Asian, and other groups represented in my congregation, I thank you for taking time to look at it. If there was any consideration I would like us to take, going from what I believe to be a good solution in Commissioner Graves' proposal, would be to ensure that the majority of my Muckleshoot brothers and sisters' votes would be in that district, so that our voices would not be heard or would not be ignored or diluted. And again, I thank you for all of your hard work, and outside of any political leaning, I support Commissioner Gray's proposal. Thank you again for letting us have voice.
Thank you. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us this afternoon and to share your comments. Sean?
Yes, Chair. Our next panelist will be William. William, if you're able to turn on your video, and please begin your testimony.
I turned on my video. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity. My name is William Terrence. I live in the 7th Congressional District in Belltown neighborhood of Seattle. I've worked in Everett in the 2nd Congressional District for the past year. I have an objection to the maps ordered by strength of objection, Paul Graves, April Sims, and Joe Fain, specifically to the makeup of the 9th Congressional District, where I feel the commission needs to be open to more continuity and less contiguity which is bordering and not bringing people together. First, Brady Pinero Walkinshaw's map is the best we can hope for. It's certainly problematic for parts of the 9th District for the AAPI residents in the area, so please support that map as much as possible while looking at possible adjustments. April Sims went back on her commitment to protect the majority Black, Indigenous, and people of color nature of the 9th District specifically. Gray's map as the 9th, as an example, along with many others pointed out here, is just plain dishonest. It creates districts with majority white voters out of currently BIPOC districts. Joe Fain's map is essentially the same as April Sims and largely makes me question April Sims' dedication to being a Democrat. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. We appreciate you taking the time to share your comments with us. Sean?
Yes, Chair. So there are 2 more individuals who have not yet testified. Zoom is still having some issues. So it's Candace Wheeler and Joanne Cullen. I'm going to try to do allow to talk first. And if that doesn't work, we're going to try something else before we close out the meeting.
Thank you, Sean.
Candace Wheeler, if you're able to, you should have permission now to talk. If you're able to unmute yourself and please begin. And Joanne, I will try the same thing. If you're able to click the unmute button and please begin.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So am I supposed to be testifying?
Yes, you're on. We're ready for you.
Okay. So I support the League of Women Voters map. I like April Sims' map, and I will be actually. I didn't know if I would be testifying or not by the time I got here, so I'll probably be submitting more written comments, but I feel like they both honor the communities of color, the communities of interest. I also live in the Central District, and they both honor keeping the historical Central District together in whichever map, whichever district they end up in. And I really appreciate all of the work because I know they worked hard with the tribes, especially the League. I know they worked hard with the tribes and with the Latinx communities to also get the maps right in other parts of Washington. But I'll be submitting some written comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for choosing to be here with us and for being patient as you're waiting for your turn. We look forward to seeing your written comments. Sean?
Yes, Chair. So we're going to go back to Candace Wheeler. If you're able to press the unmute button and please begin your testimony. And it does not look like we're getting any response from Candace, so she may have already left the meeting, Chair.
Thank you. All right, so I see one last person in the room, Sean, and I may be just making a mistake here, but I see Linda Seltzer. Did she already go?
I believe, yes, Chair. Yes,
okay, all right, terrific. Well, then that concludes this public meeting. And before I close the meeting, I want to give our commissioners an opportunity to make a statement. And I apologize that I did not do that at our Tuesday night meeting. It was late and it just slipped my mind. So I apologize to you, commissioners, for not giving you an opportunity to speak. But I want to give you that opportunity now if you would like to make a statement. So please raise your hand if you'd like to make a statement, and I'll call on you. Okay, Commissioner Sims.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank all of the folks that provided public comment today, the folks that provided public comment on Tuesday, and the number of folks that have been providing comment directly on our maps and sending in emails and leaving voicemails. The beauty of this process and the reason that we release these draft maps is so that we can get input and so folks can help identify any gaps that we might have in our learning and our understanding of the communities of interest in our state. So just deeply appreciate everyone taking the time and the energy to provide us with thoughtful feedback today and yesterday or Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sims. All right, Commissioner Graves.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I'm likewise very grateful to everybody for showing up on a Saturday and then on Tuesday from 7 to midnight to testify on these maps. It's such an important thing to hear from so many people in the public, and we're really grateful for you taking time and letting us know what you think.
Thank you. Commissioner Walkinshaw.
Wanted to thank everybody as well, echoing what's been said by my fellow commissioners. There's just some really strong themes that have come out today and in the prior testimony on Tuesday about the power of keeping communities of interest together, which I hear strongly. And that's a core value of mine in these discussions. So I just wanted to thank you all for making your voices heard and so clearly stating the sorts of ways you'd like to see your voices reflected in our democracy. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Fain.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to echo all my colleagues' sentiments. This was a very valuable time this afternoon, and there's a lot of great input on a lot of the specifics that the commissioners really need to know about. I also want to extend my thanks to you as chair. This is certainly a significant undertaking to run through, 500 or 600 public comments in the span of a week. And so we appreciate your commitment to outreach and the staff's hard work for making this all happen. We know it's not easy. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback. And I also want to thank the commissioners, those 4 voting commissioners that have been appointed to this commission. Your dedication and commitment is admirable. And I appreciate each and every one of you taking time in your lives to be present to the public in this process. And I recognize that the amount of time that the public sees each of you in these public meetings is a tiny fraction of the amount of time that it takes for you to be a leader within your own staff and in your relationships that you're building together as we work together as a commission to agree to a final plan. I want to thank to those folks who are providing interpretation for us. I recognize that this is such an important job to make sure that every single resident of Washington State has the opportunity to participate, at least as an observer, and also to be able to comment. So thank you, our ALS interpreters and also our Spanish language interpreters. I want to also thank our court reporter and the court reporters who have been present, especially in the meetings this week. It's a lot of testimony. Thank you for your skill and dedication in providing an accurate public record for us. I also want to thank the caucus staff and the independent redistricting commission staff for all of the work it takes to run these meetings, for all of you who've helped to prepare us, the commissioners, to be fully present and to be able to listen intelligently to this testimony. So with that, I would like to call this meeting to a close. Thank you.